I'm really, really glad that BECTU have called this debate, actually, because this has been something rumbling, as I'm sure you all know, along for many, many, many years, and causes a lot of people concerned, a lot of confusion and aggro, and so it's great that we've got in a room to talk about it, and thank you for organising it. I just want to check, how many members of Shooting People are here? Fantastic, and thank you for paying your subscriptions, because that means that we can pay all our people minimum wage, actually much more than minimum wage, so thank you. And how many people here are members of BECTU? About the same number. We should really have done bride and groom on the way in, I feel. Would have been good.
Thank you for paying your subs.
Anyway, there is obviously... Any equity members here? Oh, good showing, good showing. So that's just showing off now, isn't it? Yeah, remember everything. Are you a member of everything? Me? Are you a member of Shooting People in BECTU?
Come on, 7 minutes.
Okay. So I just wanted to acknowledge very quickly, there's obviously a very large area of agreement here with probably everyone in the room. When I first started working in television, it was common practice for people like Planet 24 to employ hundreds of free interns. It was very exploitative. That's been stamped out. It's a very, very good thing. I'm very pro the minimum wage generally. In fact, I'm very pro the living wage. Very interested in the work of people like London Citizens to push that wage higher. I think if you're a cleaner at Morgan Stanley's, then there's absolutely no question you should be earning more than minimum wage. So I think a lot of common agreement in the room. I want to state that before I get on to where we probably disagree, lest we lose sight of the fact that actually there is a huge amount of agreement. So for years we've taken postings on Shooting People for unpaid positions. They've been very popular. We've connected a lot of people together. But there's always been a bunch of people who say that this is inappropriate and shouldn't be happening on Shooting People. And obviously with the minimum wage legislation now, it's often unclear to people what's legal, what's not legal. There's lots of rows that go on. Should that have been posted? Was it legal? Is it moral? So we did another poll. We've done these before, but we did one recently. And we asked all our members, do you want to see unpaid postings on Shooting People? Would you consider unpaid work yourself? Do you think the rules are clear about what's allowed and not allowed? And which do you think is more important, to protect workers in the film industry or to allow choice for people? And we had the biggest response we've ever had from a poll. I mean, by far. We had 1,688 responses. We had over 1,000 comments on the website. It really was extraordinary. And a very, very clear reaction. Over 80% wanted to see unpaid postings. And 75% thought that choice was more important than protection for workers in the film industry. And in truth, there are literally thousands of films that get made this way with unpaid volunteers that don't result in legal action, where everyone walks away very, very happy, and in the way Shooting People really facilitates and represents that. So potentially, what's the problem? Now, the demographic that we're talking about in this debate are the people to whom minimum wage applies, which is the non-registered freelancers, and that is not the people, I think, in this room. Who in this room would that apply to? They'd be applying for a runner's job or a job that minimum wage would apply to. Who in this room does that apply to? One? Where's Julian? No, I know you're here. Two? Anyone else? So we're actually having a debate about a constituent with us this evening. But I asked our tech director to break down the responses from our poll and isolate just the responses from runners or members who are under 24 years old, of which there were 118. And interestingly, their results were exactly the same as the majority group. 81% wanted to see unpaid postings, 86% would consider working unpaid, 72% didn't understand where the rules meant they could or couldn't do something anyway, and 73% wanted choice. They didn't want to be protected. They didn't want to be told, you can't take that job because it breaks minimum wage. They wanted the choice to make that decision themselves. I was going to make a comment about the proposition, but it seems to have changed, so I'll move on from that. So, as an example, we took a posting in 2003 for a film called The Little Terrorist, which was a short film, and they were posted not only for a whole bunch of unpaid crew. It caused a bit of a furore even at the time, because they said you had to pay your own flight to India to take part in the film. And they said, unfortunately, we can't pay fee or I pulled it from our database. We can't pay fees or cost of travel. Once you get there, we'll feed and house you. We'd love you to come on board. It's going to be great. Anyway, that film, some of you might remember, was nominated for an Oscar, and everyone who worked on it, had the most fantastic adventure. Went to Rajasthan, shot a film, came back with an amazing credit, and was very, very happy about it. This is exactly the kind of posting that we would no longer have on Shooting People now. And the reason that we no longer have it is much less that minimum wage law makes it clearly impossible, but there are a small number of minimum wage activists who basically contact anyone who posts on Shooting People when they're posting that they believe breaks minimum wage law, and they basically hound them and harass them and contact anyone they've ever worked with and say, this person is breaking the law, this person disrespects workers' rights. And I have spoken to many, many people who this has happened to, some of whom were making a film for a charity that was never clarified by these activists before they went charging ahead. Another friend of mine who was making a very low-budget film with an artist. She lives in an ex-council flat. She works at a late shift at Discovery to do transmission bay work in between producing short films. Again, people she'd worked with were contacted and said this person is an abuser and an exploiter. And okay, I understand people have strong feelings, and there are activists in every walk of life. There are climate change activists, there are pro-abortion, anti-abortion activists. So I sort of respect the role of the activist. But I think as an industry, we need to, or as a grouping of people who are making independent film, and I mean that by the industry, I'm not talking about Harry Potter. We have to decide what do we want to happen here. Otherwise, by default, by the back door, these activists are going to decide what the policy is in our world. Because what's happening now is that these people are now too afraid to post again because they think they're going to get this kind of harassment from people. Now, there's a sort of Scarlet Pimpernel of the minimum wage, which is a person who goes by the name of Pat Duggan. Now, I'm pretty sure Pat is in the room tonight because Pat is not a real name. And I would love Pat to take the opportunity tonight to sort of unmask him or herself and have this debate openly out in the light about what the correct policy should be in this area, rather than trying to kind of, by the back door, force the argument. I've got 1 minute. Oh, I've got so much to say. Basically, enforcing minimum wage really strictly is not going to create a utopian world of sort of fantastic, better films made with very high wages. It's basically going to snuff out a large part of the kind of creative, vibrant, grassroots community filmmaking which goes on in this country and which provides opportunity for people to learn something and try film and see if they like it, having the choice to volunteer and see if it's something that suits them. And I just think we need to decide together whether we want an industry where only people who've managed to amass big resources, i.e. only corporations decide what gets made, because only people who can pay everybody from the get-go will get the chance to make an independent film in this country. So how do we draw the line? We definitely want to protect people from a film like Harry Potter, which I have heard is completely maybe I shouldn't say you're filming it on it's liable. Anyway, we definitely want to protect people from being abused by large industry films, so there's clearly no argument for not knowing if the film's going to make any money or break even, etc., etc. But how do we draw a line? Because I passionately believe we need to protect an area of kind of collaborative filmmaking in this country, and together we need to decide what that's going to be. We want to decide it with our members. We want to get a vote on a series of guidelines and then basically go to the Treasury and say this is what we believe is fair and which will grow a creative economy in this country, because creativity bubbles up from underneath and you have to have rules which allow that and not say everything's going to come from what Warner Brothers commissions down. Thank you.
Well done. Can I have your notes? Thank you very much, Jess. Just before I come to Martin, I'd just like to ask Jess a question. Do you recognise the phenomenon of labour market power? You've highlighted choice here, people's right to choose, as perhaps outweighing the minimum wage. Do you recognise the phenomenon of labour market power, so that some operators in the employment relationship have greater power than others?
No, I do, but do you recognise the fact that this industry is specific and not like other industries? You can't say film is like working in a factory or working as a cleaner. No one would do that job if they weren't being paid $5.20 an hour, and it's completely irresponsible to sort of encourage an environment where people have to clean for nothing to show that they really want to clean for $5.20 an hour. And I think there's a danger in just trying to kind of roll across labour laws which are really, really appropriate for other industries and say, oh, film is just the same. Film is not the same. It's this funny industry that's half commerce and half art. We had a friend who used to have an email signature which was, what was it? Smells like art, looks like commerce. No, looks like art, smells like commerce, or something. Anyway, because film is this confusing thing of sitting between the two areas. And if we regulate it just for the commerce, then we snuff out the art.